Hi, Liz. Make sure I have my easy access to my presentation and it's ready to go. Boom. Got it.
You might want to pause the recording and then ask him when he joins, just so he doesn't get intimidated if he joined.
I don't, this is not my meeting.
Oh, okay.
I didn't do that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't have, like when I look in the dot dot dot, it doesn't show that I have access to do that.
Okay. Maybe he has it set up this way then.
Let me just check my email and make sure that I don't have an email saying somebody can't make it or something. Okay, so far it still looks like it looks like we're on. Um, oops. Well, I know this is you did this from the Langone from the email that says Langone Zoom, right? Right, Liz? Okay. I'm just making sure, this technology sometimes I can mess up, so I just want to be sure. But since we're both here, I think we did the right thing. I'm feeling happy about the progress that we're making. And I think, we should just keep doing the work and see what happens. What's that sound? What does that mean? Did you hear that? Oh, that's Slack. Okay. Somebody's, oh, it's Slack. Okay. I thought it was Zoom. I'm gonna send them an email just to be sure.
I'll be able to go ahead and to do a demo for them. So we see
Hello,
how that
Cindy.
goes next week. So
Give me 2 minutes. I'm running up another call. 2 minutes.
the Lord will give us strength.
Amen. So Liz, I don't know if I told you this, but I'm in Toronto right now, and it's a winter wonderland.
I went to undergrad in Toronto, so I meant to talk to you about that. Have you gotten Tim Hortons or Second Cup Coffee yet?
No, I'm staying at my high school best friend's home. So it's going to be a weekend of home cooking.
Where is it? Where in Toronto?
Um, I don't know, some place called Mansour Terrace. It's about a 15-minute drive from the airport.
Mansfield
It's near to
Terrace.
York College. It's like super
That's where I
close.
went to that's where I went to undergrad.
Oh yeah, it's like walking distance.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's the area is really nice now. It was like there wasn't much there when I was in school a long time ago, and now it's all built out. There's like I think like outlets or boutiques or something nearby, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. That's where I went to school, and so did Dan Levy and Rachel McAdams.
Are you Canadian?
I liked Toronto, so yeah.
Yeah, this is my high school best friend. We've been friends since we were about 11 years old.
Oh, how did she end up in Toronto?
It's a gentleman.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, like we both immigrated from Guyana for university. And I think he
Okay.
had family in Toronto and my mom was in New York City. So
Okay.
like he came to Toronto and he did his undergraduate at University of Windsor.
Mhm.
That's not Toronto, right? That's
Mm-mm.
Windsor.
It's Windsor.
Yeah, that's closer to Detroit.
Where's
And yeah, so he went to University of Windsor and I yeah, and then he moved to Toronto eventually. And I moved to New York City.
got it? Yeah, I love Toronto and I like being there in the winter. It's nice.
Oh,
It, no.
I'm not a cold weather person, but
Yeah. I feel like Toronto they have a lot of like underground passages and stuff. So you can kind of avoid the cold a little bit.
and it also seems like where he lives, he told me that uh like his job was just to clear the path from his front door to the street and that the city clears the sidewalks and the streets.
Did they? Because they don't usually.
Yeah.
Is it cleared?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay. I was there with my mom last year in Toronto and it was um very slippery sidewalks and stuff because it was like a big snowstorm when we were there and they just didn't clear it. So
You just like Toronto.
I do, yeah. I don't think I would live there again, but I liked it when I was there.
Mm.
It is like a little bit like London weather though. It rains a lot. It's very gray. It's a gray city.
Yeah, that's what he told me. He told me it's pretty great. Today is very sunny. The sky is bright blue. It's like beautiful. And it's a winter wonderland. There's snow everywhere. Snow
Hmm.
on the rooftops, snow on the garage rooftops. Uh, yeah.
Sounds right.
So we're gonna be meeting with uh he's hosting dinner for about five or like seven other guys from our high school who all live like within an hour of Toronto, and I'm the only female in the group.
Oh
And
wow.
most of them I haven't seen for almost 30 years.
Oh wow.
So
That's gonna
it's
be really
really nice.
fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be super fun.
Oh,
Gonna be super fun. Some of them are very funny. They were funny in high school and they're still funny.
I love my high school friends. It's like so much time can go by without seeing them and it doesn't matter. They know you better than anyone you'll meet as an adult.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I saw when I went last year with my mom, I saw my university roommate. We lived together. It was just so nice to see her. It had been years. Yeah, because it's been over 20 years since I finished undergrad. So it
Mm-hmm.
had been a long time since I saw her. I had visited since I graduated, but I think it's still been like 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. Like I visited my best friend here like multiple times when the kids were young, um, when he was at University of Windsor. But I haven't, only one of the friends that we're meeting have I seen since we left high school. And this was many years ago before I had a family, like
Mm.
more than 25 years ago. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, sorry. I'm aware
Oh,
at
Hi,
the
don't
conference. I have to come
apologize.
back to my hotel room. So, Cindy,
No
how are you?
apologies needed.
we're making small talk.
I'm great. I feel so lucky to have discovered that workshop and have met you in person and listened to you talk about your work after Marianne spoke so highly of you. I felt like it was a coup.
Wow. Wow. That's good to know.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
Dr. Gubenga, when we entered the call, it said that it's being recorded. I just want to know that you're okay with that.
I'm okay. This is what my assistant does because I meet a lot of people. I
Yeah.
like to record my mentoring meetings because at some point I have to write a book about the things I've done and some of my mentorship. I don't I base them on lived experience. I don't because if I go through the standard mentorship, I won't be where I am today. But to
Mm-hmm.
document those things, I don't know if I have the time. At least with AI, maybe I can record. So they record everything now. So I have to let her know that
Oh
I won't
yeah,
know how to do
that's
it.
wonderful because
Yeah.
I have a very bad short-term memory. So I try to record my meetings as well so that I can go back over them and like be very efficient with my follow-up.
Mm,
So,
nice. Okay. So what can
so
I
shall
do?
we
Tell me.
start? Shall we do quick introductions?
Yes.
So I'm Shindy. I am an adjunct faculty member and an alum of Tish's ITP program. I went to ITP several decades ago, and Marianne was there when I was there as a student. And then I came back in 2021 in the midst of the pandemic. The then chair of the department asked my the the person who started the COVID Impact Project and I to come to NYU to Tisch and to engage in dialogue with the students about um, extracting stories from data. So
Mm-hmm.
I was a student before the turn of the 2000s, and then I came back and
Okay.
I'm teaching. And I started this research project, which is the COVID-19 Impact Project. And the principle, it's evolved over time, but the main focus of the project for me is to hold space for memory because
Mhm.
I believe that we forget too soon and then we repeat the same mistakes that you know that led to some very disparate and negative impacts of the pandemic on vulnerable
Recording in progress.
that's how I started the project, the COVID Impact Project,
Mm-hmm.
back in 2021. And I'll talk a little bit more about where we are today and my interest in COVID orphanhood. But I just wanted to give Liz a chance to quickly introduce herself.
Sure.
Hi, so nice to meet you. I'm helping Shindy out on this project. I'm also in education. I teach journalism at Columbia Journalism School to graduate students, and then I teach high schoolers at the School of the New York Times. But I'm also an investigative reporter. So Shindy and I were connected because I worked on a piece that ran in the city about children who lost parents to COVID and how the school's Department of Education just wasn't providing the right type of support for those kids. And we interviewed a lot of the kids and a lot of the families for that article. So yeah, that's it.
Wow, fascinating. So I'm a professor of medicine and population health. I do a lot of work in global health, and I direct the Institute for Excellence in Health Equity at the medical school and the healthcare. So people don't understand this. We're a healthcare system, and the healthcare system has two medical schools: Grossman Long Island School of Medicine, primary care, 3-year, and NYU Grossman School of Medicine in Manhattan. So my institute spans across all of that. The idea is to advance excellence in health equity across our 3 mission area: to care, to teach, and to discover. So it's really clinical care, medical education, and research. And so I do work in the global health space as well. I was founding vice dean for the NYU School of Global Public Health. I was associate vice chancellor for the NYU Global Network Program. So I know a lot of the players. That's how come Miriam and I, Miriam Petit, we're both associate vice chancellors working with Linda Mills, the current president, before founding this institute 4 years ago. So what can I do for you guys? How can I help? You know.
So would you like me to talk a little bit about COVID orphanhood, or do you feel like you understand and know it sufficiently? Um, and why I care about it, or would you like me to just go straight into how you can help?
Talk about how I can help. I look up your website already. I looked up everything already.
Okay, awesome. So I am in arts technology. Like
Mm.
I'm not in medicine, I'm not in public
Okay.
health.
Mhm.
But I'm advancing this work because I really like it's a passion of mine. It's a passion project, and I really care about it. So since I've been at NYU, I've been like trying to find ways to support and advance the project. So I'm
Mhm.
always kind of like on the lookout for grants and things like that. So I got a small grant from Tish. They call it an incubator grant that is supposed to help artists to compete in the pool for the NYU Mega Grant initiative.
Mhm.
And then if we are awarded an NYU Mega Grant, then of course, then we can compete for external grants. So that's where I'm
Yep.
going with the work. So
Okay.
I'm looking for experts in several different areas that can either point me toward research, point me to other experts that I can talk to really like solidify my work, my proposal, and have it like really grounded in research, in meaningful research, and
Mhm.
and in the real world. And so because I think one of the reasons that Marianne connected us is because you are an expert in health equity. And I've learned so much about social determinants of health and
Mhm.
the like health inequity in the United States just because of my passion and my interest in
Yeah.
COVID, in the way that different like Black, Latino immigrant populations, like the impact of COVID on
Mm.
our communities was just so extraordinary compared to
Yeah.
other communities. And I feel like so much is known, but there's still barriers to creating real equity in health. So the way that you can help me is to um, either lend your expertise in health equity, like point us in the direction of like specific work that you've done around health equity that can that can undergird our work for COVID orphanhood. Um, because I think our long-term goal is first to create this COVID orphan listening project. The goal of COVID orphan listening project is to humanize the data on COVID orphanhood. A lot of times there's lots of data and statistical studies going around, and the numbers are so great, people get numb, they can't relate to it. The purpose of this project is to bring the hidden pain of COVID orphans out of the shadows, to give them a place to be seen, to tell their stories, and to get people to connect in a human way, so that then we can see if there are doctors and scientists who want to do like longitudinal studies on COVID orphans to see what are like the physiological, mental health, and other um, long-term impacts of this kind of pandemic on top of a pandemic, and then see if we can use that work and research to push policymakers to create some kind of economic support system for this broad group of hundreds of thousands of children in the United States that experience this. This is my grand
Yep.
vision as
I
an artist,
get
as
it.
not a doctor.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a link
Okay.
to a paper I wrote in the height of the COVID pandemic. Sorry, I'm trying to, and basically the question we asked. So I was looking at the data as they were reporting them on CNN that Black folks were dying, Hispanic, and the narrative was that there's something inherently wrong with Black population.
Exactly.
My wife is
Exactly.
an emergency medicine doc, and she saw the first patients in New Jersey. And so I'm standing by the TV and I'm watching CNN. All of us were watching TV. If you remember, that was a very harrowing time. So I
Mm-hmm.
called our chief of hospital operations and said, "Hey, Fritz, how much do we have in terms of our data?" I said, "We have 15,000 people in just 6 months." I said, "So can we look at the data by race and ethnicity?" He said, "Well, yeah. What are you looking to do?" I said, "I want to prove that the disparities is not because of genetic variances. Because by the way, race is a proxy for a lot of things. But in fact, I'm more similar to Liz genetically than I am to you, Shindi, believe it or not. So the diversity within race, in terms of our genetic diversity, is much broader than between races. We're so
Mm-hmm.
much alike genetically than we are unalike, other than the pigmentation and other things. So I said my hypothesis was that what is driving it is social determinants of health. Do you have access to care? What is your lived environment? Is a time when people have to have housing stability. Is a time where you have to isolate. If I'm working, 75% of the New York City workers in the subway in Thompson were all Black or Hispanic. So you're going to take it back home. Grandma is there with you. Housing is multi-generational. It's unlike us. I have a big house. I don't need to. It's only 5 of us. So I don't need to isolate that much. Everybody can stay in their quarters, it will be okay. But my cousin, who is a cab driver in Chicago, doesn't have that, lives in an apartment, 3 kids, wife. You can imagine what's going to happen there. So, and that's exactly what we found. New York Times carried it, and I became famous for 2 months. And then a whole papers began to come out. So that is what I want to send to you guys now. And you can look at that paper. It basically tells the story that you're trying to tell. But
Mm-hmm.
here's what I think. And I really like this idea. When I went to your website and looked at the work you're doing, I was fascinated by it. So I just send this to you now. Okay, good. If you guys pull it up, it's really looking at um, let me see. It's saying something along assessment of racial ethnic disparities in hospitalization and mortality.
Yes,
Basically,
got it.
we found that Black patients were 3 times more likely to have COVID. But once they are admitted and we control for their what we call comorbidity, the other diseases they have, which is actually much higher in Black patients, we found that that difference in infection dropped. We then ask a third question. What is the likelihood of being admitted to the intensive care unit or being discharged home dead? And we found that they were still higher. I then said, what if we control for where they're coming from, the zip code that they live in? Guess what we found? Boom, everything disappeared. And Black folks in our health system were 30% more likely to actually survive if you control for all of those neighborhood characteristics. They won't give us their jobs because a lot of them were working at NYU as well. So we couldn't correct for the job status. We didn't have the permission to look at that because it's too personal. And that was enough. And then every other state began to write a similar thing. In fact, it's one of my most cited paper by other folks already. So I think you're onto something. The way I would do it may be a little bit different. I would say what you really want to do is, and we have given the environment that we're in right now, Shindy,
Yeah.
it will be
Yes.
important to do this not just for Black families.
Yes.
I think you have to understand that COVID killed a lot of white people as well.
Exactly.
We often we don't talk about this. I think at some point, Dr. King was trying to understand the difference between a poor white person and a poor Black person during the civil rights era. And
Yes.
to say the garbage workers, white or Black, they had a problem. And the fundamental problem was social determinants of health, access to good quality education, the quality of the education, socioeconomic status around job and unemployment, access to healthcare, quality of healthcare, transportation instability, housing instability, food insecurity. All of these things matter. It would be nice to do a lot of case studies. To really, you're documenting this with technology. You're documenting their lived experience. But it would be nice to begin to tell this story by looking at that broader category, because I think it matters. Everybody can relate to it. Because COVID is a big deal. The president actually just wrote an executive order just yesterday, 2 days ago, late Wednesday, that said that there's something called long COVID. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. That
Yes.
long COVID committee that was set up by Medicare and Medicaid and CMS should be banned, should be disbanded. They did. They have a health equity committee. They've disbanded that already. I think your work can begin to showcase in very stark terms what happened to these orphans. Where are they today? If we have a sense of where they are and where they live, what do we know about other contemporary orphans who were not orphans from that their parents died of COVID? Are their health outcomes similar? What do we know about their mental health? Now, this is going to require a lot of case studies. Liz, this is the kind of stuff you guys do, where in journalism, you have these documented case studies that then begins to draw attention to the importance of, we talk about COVID, we say it is gone, we're back to work, life is moving on, economy is getting better, but guess what? They're left behind. We haven't talked about what it is. And then we can shed light on their stories. What schools are they going to? Where, if they're orphaned, which we know they are, were they absorbed by family members? Were they absorbed by the public health, by the public institutions? If they are, how are they different from those who are not orphaned from COVID? You know, to me, those are the stark differences that we need to talk about. We cannot talk about them compared to kids who are okay. We should talk about them compared to contemporaries that also are orphaned, but then to showcase how bad this is in terms of the mental health. It will be important to have a mental health expert on this work with you. I'm trying to think about who we know in my orbit that can help us think about this. This would be nice to have a adolescent psychiatrist to just think this through. And how do you document this kind of work? So what am I saying? I'm saying I'm all in. The institute is creating what we call affiliated faculty groups, and we haven't formalized this yet. I can make a formal appointment that just can showcase the work. What can we do? I think the more specific you are about the ask of me,
the better.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think I'm learning how to be more specific because I'm kind of making the road by walking.
Mm-hmm.
But everything you said really resonates with me. And the specificity and the lens you bring to it as a researcher is like very critical. Also, like I follow this group called the Poor People's Campaign, which was something that I think his name is Reverend Reverend, I can't remember his name, but he worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he really talks about like poverty as a driver for a lot of things, including early death, illness,
Mm-hmm.
bankruptcy, and things like that. And his campaign is covers all poverty, and he talks about like white poverty as well as black
Yeah.
poverty. And
Mm-hmm.
they did a study, the Poor People's Campaign, they did a study where they showcased like across states in the United States, like what the impact of COVID was on poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And the article by the American Academy of Pediatrics, they sort of break out the impact of COVID orphanhoods by states. And
Mm-hmm.
there are certain states like Kentucky where the majority of COVID orphans are white.
Yeah.
And in this climate, I think it's really important. Like I was starting with New York City,
Mm-hmm.
where the data that I refer to is like the rate of COVID orphanhood is like four times the national average,
Yeah.
and the rate of Black, Spanish, and Asian orphanhood is dwarfs white COVID orphanhood. So, since I'm in New York City, like I wanted to start like on a global sense and then, create a model that can scale nationally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like I was super focused, but what you're saying to me in terms of like broadening the scope of it
Mm-hmm.
is really very important and very valid. I
Yeah.
think another way that you can help is like sort of helping me to think about structures within NYU um,
Mm-hmm.
that can make it possible because like most of the work that I do on this is unpaid work because
Mm-hmm.
my department doesn't really have research projects like this. They
Mm-hmm.
are really interested and they try to support me like as much as they can. But one of the reasons I'm going from grant to grant to grant is because like this is pretty much like a volunteer effort on my part, and there's a lot of student labor. Like that entire website that you looked at, that's
That's
built by our students. It's also like students, and that's really great too because they're learning about this kind of health equity and health
yeah. Mm-hmm.
disparities. A lot of them are not from the United States. They don't understand these issues. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a teaching project at the same time. So like helping me to understand like how we can like position the work and the project within NYU would be like super useful.
I think the way, so the medical school is different. I think you have to, so there are two aspects of what I call academia. And just bear with me for a second. There's something called the preparation phase or the hustle phase. In the hustle phase, you eat what you kill. That's the phase you're in right now.
Yeah.
And that's the most important phase, actually, in my opinion, because if you can survive that, then you get into what I call, now that you're on the treadmill. The treadmill is a different kind of thing because then the metrics that you're looking at are things that institutions are looking for. How much do you teach? How much scholarship do you have? What are your books that you publish? What are papers? And what are conferences that you go to? How well are you known? Get to the associate professor, and then full professor, what do you do with that? The hustle phase is the most important and it's the most difficult. And so right now, what I can do is you have to ask the question, what is the ultimate goal? If you can define an end point, then it's easy to walk back. You know, just think big. Ultimate goal is to be XYZ. And okay, who are the players you need to help you get there? Well, you need this kind of specialist, you need that person, you need that person. Okay, what would they do? You begin to lay it out. Everything you were looking for is in NYU. There's a Nigerian proverb that is a saying that we say, Nigeria is the size of Texas. From the south to the north of Nigeria is about 1,000 miles. In a particular language called Yoruba, your Sokoto is your pants. So there's a town also called Sokoto in the northern part. So I'm standing here, it's 1,000 miles to get to the top. And I know, oh, there's some experts in Sokoto. I have to fly 3 hours to go look for them. And we say, what you're looking for in Sokoto is in your Sokoto. In other words, what you're looking for 1,000 miles from here is actually in your pockets. All you have to do is search. Have you ever gotten to where you're looking for your stuff? You take out your jacket, you look at the pockets, and you find it there. You don't have to
Yeah.
go to the store and buy a new thing. You could do that. It's easier, but it just takes understanding who are the people that you need within NYU. Say, we have so many schools. And
Yeah.
at the medical school, I can help to look at stuff. We have a dashboard called the city dashboard. If you get the chance, take a look at it.
Okay.
The models you're looking at there, they can build those easily. They have access to every city in the country on all kinds of metrics that we can look at. But what is the end point? During COVID, this kind of work, anybody can pick it up. We have a very short memory as a nation, even
Yep.
people. So we've all moved on. This work, the reason I'm drawn to it now is because of the orphanage, because of the way it is told. So you have to say, maybe start with the grant that you have, the grant that you say is under review called the mega grant. Well, I'd like to see what are the endpoints there. Based on that grant, can we begin to identify the kind of people that you want to collaborate with? And then you have to be specific in terms of the collaboration. And don't say, well, I'm not in medicine, this is what I'm looking at. That's okay. That's your area. You can't be apologetic about what you're looking at. My area doesn't do that kind of work. But the population that you're targeting is an area I can think about as well, right? All of us have ways. So we can think about partnerships and the people that we can talk to help, But I'm not promising anything, but I'm just saying that is a hustle phase. You're going to have to really, really think about what that means. But as an institute, anything I can do to think through, I'm happy to do that.
Wow, this is very exciting. Thank you for encouraging me to go ahead and think big. I mean, there are times along the way when I think to myself, when I feel the weight of the country having moved on, and
Mm-hmm.
and I still care very deeply about this. And sometimes I'm like, oh, like I want to talk about COVID and COVID orphanhood, and like nobody's gonna want to listen, but I just keep going, and I keep talking about it because I really believe in it. I think one of the things that I haven't shared yet, that makes me like really passionate about the COVID orphan, like giving voice to the young people, is
Mm-hmm.
that like I have in my very personal experience seen storytelling as a vehicle for processing grief and trauma and healing.
Mm-hmm.
So my late husband passed away like very suddenly in 2019.
Sorry
And
about it.
at that time, I had a 17-year-old a daughter and a 13-year-old son. And, you know, very, very difficult, very traumatic time and period. But what I observed is that each of my children, like without me even knowing that this was a thing, like each of them gravitated to storytelling to process their trauma. So my daughter went to college. They had a TEDx program at her college, and she signed up and applied to do a TEDx talk. And she talked about radical acceptance and like, she'd gone through therapy and like how that helped her. Um, and my son, who had become like, he was very rambunctious, like
Mm-hmm.
before his dad passed. And then he became like really, really silent, really, really quiet. Started high school and took a storytelling class as an elective and talked about, he didn't talk about his, like, he would hardly talk to me about it. He would hardly discuss it. But in class, when there was a format for him to develop that narrative, like he used that opportunity to revisit it, to think about it, and to write and share like an oral narrative in class.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that gave me the idea that children want to be seen. Like once the immediate trauma and grief passes, like everybody else moves on, but their lives are changed
Yeah.
like permanently. And
Yeah.
it's really difficult and painful to like continue through your life when everybody else has moved on and you have so much that you want to be seen. This is what my son told me. He's like, I wanted them, like I went into a new environment
Yeah.
and this is something about me that nobody knew. And I wanted them to know that this is something that happened to me. So that's another thing that like really motivates me. So in
Mm-hmm.
New York City, I wanted to create like a tapestry of voices and stories that reflects
Yeah.
the data and the demographic of these
Mm-hmm.
young people. So that was my main motivation. But as I kept talking about it, and I spoke to like pediatricians and so on in public health, I learned that childhood trauma and adverse childhood events can create like permanent physiological markers
Yeah.
in
It is called
people.
adverse childhood experience forever.
Yeah, yeah. So
I used to,
when I learned that, then there was another layer that came onto it for me, and I felt like it's very important for us to look at this like group of young people as like a very special group because there's two layers of trauma. There's the layer of living through COVID with all of the things that happened, the social distancing, the disruption of social networks, the fear, the uncertainty, and losing a primary caregiver. Like this is a very specific group, and I feel like we need to pay attention to that group, and we should probably have like some kind of longitudinal study rather than just like letting it go and then 30, 20 years down the line, we have a whole lot of adults that have some very particular physiological and mental health and maybe substance and economic issues, and we're not able to understand like where it came from. So my
yeah.
grand vision is to end up with like somebody like doing this longitudinal study and us addressing like what are the supports that we can provide to this very specific group of people as they move from childhood and teenagehood into young adulthood.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really it's unfortunate, but I guarantee you, I was just looking online. I have to go shortly. I was just
Okay.
looking online and I'm seeing there's a lot written about this already. I think that's the other thing. You don't you already are shedding light on this in ways that you're not even imagining. And I think you have to really think about the angle. Um, the the angle matters a lot. He said, do orphanages still exist in America? Is what happened to COVID orphans? Since that happened, U.S. orphanages have gone extinct entirely. There has to be a way to tell this story in a way that grabs everybody. And part of that is what you're doing already. But let's see what your grant looks like. You have to think about how you're going to build a career out of that. I often ask the question, so what? Anytime somebody wants to do something, I say, so what? If what you're looking at is to build models, you don't have to go this far to build a model. You need a secondary data set to do that. If what you're looking at, though, is to draw attention to this issue, and then ask the question, where are we? Now, let me paint a picture. Adverse childhood experiences has been shown to significantly impact lives of people. Being an orphan is an adverse childhood experience. What is unique about being an orphan of parents that were lost to COVID? You can see where I'm headed now. That's why I was saying that. How do you draw the parallel when you do a case series of, or what are they called? Please help me. It's not a case study. When you take the stories of these kids from different backgrounds, how is that different for the regular orphans as well?
Yeah, like a
What do we know?
comparative analysis.
What does that look like? Now you're doing that with visuals that people have never seen before. That begins to, I think, and I don't know how to say it because I'm not an artist. I'm not creative, but you see where I'm headed. When you begin to do that, you're already touching something very significant. But we have to then say, who are the community of experts that you can relate to? The head of the Department of Child Psychiatry is a good friend of mine. I'm happy to set up a meeting for us to talk to her, Jenny Havens. But before I do those things, we have to be very specific in defining the, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
yes, I've heard that.
I can take a look at that.
Yeah.
Your passion is not enough to carry you through. When I tell the people say, well, Benga, so what? Black folks are dying of hypertension. Okay. Is that new to us? Like, come, you don't see that? I see that every day. It's not enough. I've got to define it in a way that makes sense for folks to want to jump on board and really help. And I think we have them in NYU. If you wrote a mega grant to NYU, you can submit the same grant to other foundations. You don't need to wait for that to be funded before you start moving on. That's what I'm trying to visit. That's the hustle phase. Anybody who cares to listen, hey, I have something to sell. It's a question of, can you buy it? Well, salespeople in research. That's what we do all day. I'm in a conference here now. I'm going to have to go out and start selling my product. In other words, selling my ideas.
Yeah.
They don't buy it. They don't buy it. Okay. Something comes out of that. So think about it that way. Still think in terms of where you're headed. All right. Shindy,
okay, thank you so much. Awesome.
I have to jump off, but next step.
Can your assistant please send me the recording?
Yeah, I can send it myself once they send it to me back as well.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll be in touch.
Liz, nice meeting you. Shindy, pleasure too.
Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay, let's keep working.
Okay, bye-bye.